What's going on, guys? Welcome, welcome, welcome back to the one and only Wasabi Wednesday. This is a weekly show committed to sharing the hot and spicy truth about dating, relationships, sex, basically human connection, right? One of those fundamental things that so often can get so screwed up, right? It can get so turned around that, and a lot of people don't talk about it. That's, I think, one of the biggest things that comes up with sex, right? And with relationships is that we don't talk about what's going on with us. We feel that it's weakness. We feel that it's scary, right? And I think because we don't talk about it, creates a lot of pain for a lot of people. What's up, Dayal? What's up, everybody coming on, everybody jumping on? Welcome to Wasabi Wednesday. Give me a one if you're excited to be here. Let us know where you're watching from. And if you're excited about today's topic, sexual healing, it is going to be fantastic. I am looking forward to having my legendary co-host with me, Miss Jamie Thompson. I haven't had a conversation with this. I haven't shared a stage or shared a camera with this young lady in quite a while, but she is absolutely brilliant. I'm going to go ahead and invite her on now. I'm excited to have Jamie on with us. All right, Bubba. Jamie's coming up. How you doing? How you doing? David Root, what's up, my man? Good to see you. For everybody watching live, watching on the replay, welcome to Wasabi Wednesday. And guys, feel free to share this. Hello. Are you there, my dear? I can't hear you. Can anybody hear Jamie? There she is.
Hello.
Hello. How are you doing over there in the frosty wherever?
I'm amazing.
Well, welcome. We're so happy to
It
have
is
you on.
I'm really happy to be on. It's snowing here. You can see here on my balcony in Boulder, Colorado. A little different than San Diego.
A tiny bit different. Well, I'm happy to have you here. Yeah, I'm in Dallas, so I'm not in San Diego either, but it sure as heck ain't as cold as where it is over by you. So I'm stoked to have you on because like you and I, Jamie, go ahead and take a second and share this thing, and I'll just talk while you're doing the thing.
Great.
So guys,
yeah, it looks like it's shared.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah. So guys,
we're good. Yeah.
So Jamie, so this Wasabi Wednesday is all around sexual healing. Just FYI, my name is Matt Schaefer. I'm a transformational speaker and coach obsessed with helping people make shifts happen in their lives. I do that through coaching, I do that through speaking, and I do that through my 2 Facebook Live shows, Mondays with Matt and Wasabi Wednesday. And I am so excited to have with me on the show today, Miss Jamie Thompson, one of the people, I find you one of the most fascinating humans I know currently in my life, and I would love for you to share your light with the world. So tell us a little bit about you and what you're up to out there.
Yes, absolutely. So let's see. What my passion in life is being able to empower people to connect with their eroticism and all of the aspects of their eroticism. So everything from their spirituality to the naughty parts to the exciting primal parts to the sensual romantic parts, like really incorporating all of our desire so that we are fully connected with our power source. And I believe that our power source begins with our relationship to our own sexuality. And so in diving into that, we can dismantle programs that don't serve us in our life, limiting beliefs. We can create more vitality and energy and activate life force and creativity. And I just think it's the answer to everything. And it's also fun because instead of going to that personal development workshop, you can just go to the bedroom if you really know how to do it correctly in a way that will ultimately serve and up-level your life. So I work with a lot of impact-driven entrepreneurs and individuals who are successful in life and wanting to increase their impact. And so they look to do that through the pathway of their
Amazing.
sex
That's so,
life.
yeah, what you do and the
Yeah.
mechanism in which you do it. I don't know anybody out there doing like the niche work that you're doing. And that's why I just absolutely love it, because I think sex, as you said, is one of the most powerful conduits we have to learn more about ourselves and to really grow and expand and transform ourselves as human beings. And so, guys, I want you to ask, guys, everybody who's watching, welcome. Everybody watching live or on the replay, please share this. Let's get this thing out. Let's start this conversation. And what questions do you have around sex, and what comes up for you around sex as a vehicle for transformation and growth? And Jamie, I want to start by just asking you, you work with a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people in this arena. What are the most common things that come up for people that you're working with them through when it comes to their sex? Is it judgment? Is it shame? Like, what are the patterns that you see a lot when you're working with people?
Absolutely. Well, you definitely said one of them, which I put judgment and shame
That's
kind of in the same category. I think there's three main categories, judgment and shame of our desire or our turn on, where it's like, this part of me is okay and this part of me is not. So inside of that part of you that you think is not okay, oftentimes contains something that many people call the golden shadow. And that includes a lot of your power, a lot of your creativity, all of the parts of yourself that you think are too much. The parts of yourself that someone has told you, like, that's a little too much. That's usually where our beauty, our uniqueness, and our magic that we have to give to the world lies. So in diving into the areas that we judge and areas we have shame about, oftentimes people have massive up levels. Another area is communication. So it's so funny. I was just talking to someone the other day, and he's dating a woman, and I said, he tells me this thing that he wants, and it's this desire that he has, and I'm like, well, did you share this with her? He was like, oh, no, I'm not going to share this with her. And I'm like, okay, well, this is interesting. Like, how do you ever expect to be met if you don't learn how to share specifically and vulnerably, and so it occurs like an opportunity for your partner to have increased connection with you? So really mastering communication is another one. And then learning how to receive. So oftentimes we say we want something, and then when it shows up, we are stuck in the story of not having it, and so we don't actually let ourselves receive it. So I would say those are probably the three main areas that I'm working with people on
Absolutely. And
currently.
then the whole communication thing, I mean, all of that stuff is so critical. And I've experienced this and lived this stuff in my life. And especially on the communication front, like how we connect with our partners. And I think it starts with an understanding, right? If we want to facilitate, sexual healing for each other, doesn't it start with a commitment from both sides to really like have a safe space where they can talk about whatever they're into without, any sort of like
Yes.
shame or fear of judgment from the partner, right?
Yeah. Yes, and I think there's a difference between, there's like kind of this distinction to make here, because having a space like you're talking about, Matt, where everything can be on the table, that's a great level of permission and intimacy and connection that's present in a relationship. That doesn't mean everything that's on the table gets done. If you have a buffet and there's like a 15-course buffet on the table and you eat all of that in one sitting, you might get sick, right? But it's like just knowing that everything's on the table, and you can sample pieces of the buffet, and you can talk about, what maybe someone has one item that's on the table of that buffet, and you're like, you know what, I really don't like mushrooms. I've never liked mushrooms. I don't know about that. And that's okay. You can then talk about that. I call it the erotic menu, because I like to make the metaphor of our erotic desire being like food, because it really is. We like and dislike different things, but ultimately you can develop a taste for something new if it really meant something to your partner, right? If it's your partner's like deepest true desire, then like, is that something, some way that you can show up more fully in it? And maybe there's some healing in that. I know, have an experience. I mean, let's just say it, because it's you and I, we like to go deep and talk about this stuff. The first time someone ever brought the idea of, dominance and submission to me, I was like, you want to tie me up? Are you kidding? Like, No
And what
way.
was it? What was
No
it
way.
about that that
And
like freaked you out? Because that's, I'll be honest, that's something that I'm into. So like for me, like, and I've had to have, I've
yeah.
gotten to have that conversation with people. And so, what fear was it when someone brought that to you that like that triggered you or that made you sort of a little?
Yeah, absolutely. It's and I encounter this with many women. And what's interesting is underneath this fear that I will share in a minute, a lot of us have a deep yearning. I don't even say desire because it's like a call of our soul to actually fully feel safe to really surrender. And yet, for many of us, it can be one of the most challenging things. So as a as a businesswoman who conducts myself with a matter, a great deal of respect in the world, right? Like there's been a journey for me in embracing my sexual desires publicly, which I do
Awesome.
now because I'm standing for the permission of that, right? But more than that, for me it was really about the fear of losing control and not being safe in
Naturally.
that process. Like the fear of my not having control, and then like, well, what if he goes beyond what I'm comfortable with? What if I'm somehow like it's just this, it's kind of an irrational fear of being out of
Yeah.
control. And for some women it's more rational because they've had certain experiences. For me it was actually it was just I didn't know how to let go of control. But then through the process of surrendering, I found that it was in the bedroom with this partner of mine was the place where I had the greatest experience of just release of that persona that I am in the everyday world. And I got to really relax into this juicy, divine, relaxed feminine expression that is something that I did never get to experience if I wasn't tied up and blindfolded
Yeah.
and being told what to do. Right. But we have a safe word, and it's all about creating the container that has that feel okay. And then it ends
Yep.
up being sacred. And I believe that dominance and submission is as sacred as
I
tantra.
love that, honey. I'm right there. I'm right there with you. And I
Yeah.
think this whole preconception that like that BDSM and having like this sort of primal carnal experience of each other, that can't be sacred is a huge misnomer and a huge misunderstanding. And I mean, some of the most powerful and profound sexual experiences I have had have been within that container of like a bondage, situation. And I think there's no greater like honor and no greater level of trust that's been given to me than a
Yeah.
woman, a lot like trusting me with her very, everything, with her body and everything else. I think that's a sacred
Yeah.
responsibility,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm in that experience.
Yeah.
So guys, what do you think? Is that something everybody's being quiet because they're like, oh shit, these guys are talking about serious stuff. What do you guys think? Where are your judgments around sex? Like, what comes up for you around these things, and what's standing in your way? Because it sounds like, again, communication is the key to this. And a problem that I see is we think that sacred sex has to look a certain way, like it has to be tantra and it has to be this specific channel. But you can find a divine sexual experience at the end of a riding crop if the both people are on the same page with it, right?
Yeah. I think that the key that you're bringing is it's not about, so I like to say that sex is about the act and eroticism is about how we are
Mm,
doing the act. And so it's like the way that we are approaching it is what makes
mm,
it sacred, and there's it like it some of the aspects that I've learned through tantric practice, I apply in all other areas of sex. I mean, I'm circulating energy and breathing deeply and applying some of these other practices, even if it's just like a primal, just a ravishing,
yeah,
primal ravishing. I mean, you can still apply a sacredness
absolutely.
to it. And I think that in spiritual communities, and that's some of my communities that I hang out with, are very dedicated,
Mm,
devoted spiritual beings. And I think that sometimes a shadow in these communities is a spiritual arrogance, that where it's like it looks down upon and actually becomes dogmatic similar to a way religion becomes dogmatic, although it seems different, but actually we can be spiritually dogmatic.
Yeah.
And I think looking down on certain types of sexual desire creates that dogma where there's now something wrong, and that further creates shame in someone who actually has a desire for something. And I think that the first thing to do with anything we have shame about is to turn on a bright light in that room. Wherever the dark room that has shame, we need to be able to talk about it. It needs to be met with love. Even exploring some darker fantasies. I've had experience of being able to meet a darker fantasy or some like fantasy of objectification, and in a way that I've actually ended up feeling more self-love at the end, because I met this part of myself from a new place with a partner who was really willing to show up and transmute energy together. And I think our sex life is one of the greatest transmutation devices that we have, if we can use it that way. But we have to be willing to go into the dark with night vision goggles, with like a way of really
and with
really
a
meeting
conscious
it.
withholding of judgment, with a conscious, like, you're leading with love in this situation. And just to put a cap on the whole dom sub paradigm, like David talks about, he's in a relationship with a very strong dom sub dynamic going on, and it's really powerful. And he talks about the power of that trust and connection. And I think if you really look at it, it's a great physical way to experience the polarity that we all should be seeking to achieve, like between the masculine and the feminine, like there's, I think it's a great exercise in polarity, right? For a woman to be able to surrender and feel safe, and for a man to really step, I mean, if you're doing it that way, if the masculine is the dom, which is not obviously always the way that it goes, but it's a great way to explore, that divine masculine, divine feminine polarity kind of in real time in a physical way, which I think that's super cool.
Now, something that I see happen a lot, just to kind of, take a little bit of a veering right turn here. Something that I see happen often is men will want more of like, the primal, they want to get wild. They want to explore all these fantasies, and they want, they want to explore domination, submission, that kind of a thing. And sometimes for women, there is a deep sensual part of them that has not been seen, has not been met, and is not being nourished. And so their nervous system is not in a place where that kind of like hard and fast and like primal exploration is even possible to do so without bypassing something in their nervous system first. So sometimes I think it's, we get these ideas from porn and movies and whatnot, that where it's like, that women are just ready to go or something. And I think sometimes men have these ideas of like, I could see a man listening to this right now and saying, oh, she said that women actually want this. Hey, honey, how do you feel about doing this tonight? And she's like, what? If it's out of left field. So I want to just kind of make the analogy here that women are more like crock pots. Well, sometimes men can be more like microwaves. So it's like a crock pot or an Instapot, right? I actually just got an Instapot. It's amazing. But that's not how my sexuality is, right? It's like it needs to be like turned on and simmering and met in a slower, more sensual, more energetically attuned, perhaps even tantric manner first. And then I can move into more of the primal aspects. And that's not always true. Sometimes it's like, it's just time, for, like, it's just, I'm just ready. Sometimes it depends on where we are in our cycle as well. I mean, there's a lot of elements, but for women, I just invite you to really tune into what your body actually needs. And if your partner brings up something that you're like, whoa, that's like, I can't even imagine that. Ask yourself why. Like what in you is like needing to be met first? Maybe there's a judgment or something like that, but maybe there's actually just like some part of you where you're like, if you could hold me for 10 minutes first and help me relax and just like, stroke my hair and my face and and, just be really present with your attention for a little while, then I think I might be into that. But it's like really for both people to be able to have the clarity to tune into the nuance of what we are actually desiring. And if we have a no for our partner in the world of sexual desire, it's really important to actually tune into why. I think sometimes we can just get in this like critical place, but it's like if you're really wanting to build something together, your sex life can be a dojo. It can really be the dojo where you do your work and where you explore. So rather than having no be just a complete sentence, like really, like where's the and? Like I'm feeling a no, and like where is that coming from? What do I really need? And just
Yeah,
looking a little
getting
bit
down to
deeper.
the intentions and the root causes of your no's and your yeses. Like, why do you want this? What's at the root of why you're craving this? And making
Yeah.
sure that it's healthy and
Yes.
constructive. Because if you want to do, bondage or some like kink, and it's based in a dysfunction or some like really unhealthy part of you, and you bring that to your partner in a toxic way, I think it can be destructive in a relationship. So it seems like there's an inner
Yeah.
work component. Why do I want this or why don't I want this? And then an outer work component of communicating that powerfully and exploring whether or not it's something that you guys can agree on, on both sides.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely. Drew says
absolutely.
here, a lot of people feel like surrender is a defeat and loss rather than giving into themselves. It's a loss of the ego, actually, and can be terrifying. But what are we really defending when we're resisting letting go into love, bliss, and intimacy? Yeah. What are we defending? We're protecting we're protecting our wounds, right? Like we're protecting our trauma and a lot of the things that are egoically based. Don't you think, Jamie?
Yes, absolutely. It's so funny because oftentimes the exact place that we don't want to go sexually as we begin to erotically evolve, and a lot of our desires have been met, we're comfortable sharing our desires. I think a very interesting place to look, once we've done a lot of healing already and there's like a safe ground of health to really dive into some of these deeper places, I think a great place to look is like, what am I repulsed by? Like what parts of sexuality are like, oh, they kind of like give me a visceral reaction in my body. Now there are certain things that might just
Yeah.
be off limits, right? And I don't think we need to even mention some of those on here. I mean,
Mhm.
everyone has those things, right? And that's healthy to have healthy boundaries. And it's interesting just to look into like, is this conditioning? Is this creating a visceral reaction in my body because I personally don't like this, or is this
Yeah.
some conditioning? And I think as we kind of climb the ladder of erotic evolution, we start to get interested in looking into some of these shadowy places as a means of growth and as a means of furthering
Yeah,
developing
personal
ourselves.
explanation and of transmuting, right? Transmuting, like bringing to the
Yeah.
surface and addressing and healing, right? Because this whole episode is about sexual healing, right? And so that whole concept of transmutation, I had never really experienced that until my last major relationship, right? Where I actually got to sit, I mean,
Mm,
I wept with my partner like a dozen times in the
yeah.
first couple months where we're both just like naked and crying and like experiencing all this crazy stuff because like we
Right.
brought up so much for each other. And when she would cry, I had an opportunity to hold space for her, hold space for that. And that made me stronger because my tendency in the past was to shut down when that happened. So like whenever each of us hit a
Right.
new edge,
Mm,
it gave the other person an opportunity to sort of like lean in into a deeper expression of love for each other. And it's like this
yeah.
transmutation process sexually, I think can be one of the most powerful transformational containers that exists in the world, right?
Absolutely. Yes. And the intimacy that we can find, it, the depth of intimacy of being like, I'm going to show you a part of myself um, that it makes me nervous, or that I'm embarrassed about, or that I haven't fully accepted. Like, I want to show this to you, and I want to
Mm-hmm.
share this. And the intimacy that is created when we engage at that level of depth is is phenomenal. And I love this, what you just brought up is another element of having the skill set in to be able to meet the impact that comes up from having this kind of evolved erotic life. Like there's a certain, that's why I say there needs to be a certain ground of health and skill set in the individuals before you can enter the erotic
Yeah.
dojo in this way, because it's like being able to hold a woman when she's crying after she's had like a deep cervical orgasm that just like shook her whole
Yeah.
worldview. Like that is important, so that there's not sexual trauma that is created in like, I had this big opening and then I was
Yeah.
left, and then he shut down, right? And so it's like really developing the skill set to be able to meet one another in some of these deeper spaces that you are entering. Like I don't think it's a good idea necessarily to be like, let's go for, the most confronting fantasy when we've never even had anything other
Yeah.
than missionary with the lights off. Let's go for it without having any, skills. Like it's like, this is an area to really move
Mhm.
slowly into, because
Yeah,
it can
so
bring up
laying
a
that
lot.
found I'm just thinking out loud. So laying that for people who are watching or people who are going to be watching who want to lay that foundation with their partner or with somebody they're dating. I mean, I think it starts with, reaching a mutual intention, right? That you want to elevate erotically with each other, like fostering that mutual intention and really like creating a conscious container up front. All right, we're going to incrementally work through this. We're going to incrementally explore this one layer at a time. Then we're going to talk about it. And we're going to have that really non-judgmental,
Yeah.
open line of communication, right? To begin the process. Don't you think?
Yes, absolutely. I love how you break things down into a perfectly logical steps. Amazing.
It's a
Thank
system. I
you.
mean, because it's systematic, right? And then, and then
Yeah, it is.
with each layer, like you have an opportunity to go deeper, heal another layer for somebody, and I'm just going back to like what I experienced. Like the first time I remember Valentine's Day. Last year. I did this whole I did like the whole thing, the most fancy, elaborate Valentine's Day thing I've ever done. And did the whole thing. And we went back at the end of the night, and I thought we were going to have this really powerful, cosmic, like the sexual experience. And a lot of stuff came up for her. A lot of trauma came up, and she shut down. And it all just sort of like fell apart, like at the end of the night. And so then like I had a choice, right, in that moment to feel shame, to feel regret, to get triggered, to shut down. And I felt it all come up. And that was a choice, right? Or my other choice was I can like not take this personally and not make this about me, and instead choose to remain open to this woman and hold space for her and dig deeper into why she's feeling this way and what's coming up for her. And that to me was a
Yeah.
game-changing moment in my life, like as a man, you know. That's a personal
Yeah.
example for me of like this process in real time, and I'll never forget that. And I'm grateful for it.
Oh, yeah, that really just warms my heart to hear, because that what you just shared is the kind of what that's what I'm talking about when I say creating a ground of health in order to dive into uncomfortable spaces. Like that creates a like I got you no matter what. And that's really what we need to have in this kind of exploration is that level of trust, to really surrender. That level of trust is present. I remember when I'm just thinking of a time when I was feeling so wide open, and it was like we were making love and I was just crying the whole time, and he's like, do you want me to stop? Like is this okay? And I was like, no, this is actually great. I'm just, if you can just be present with me here as this is happening and let this move, then that's really what I need right now. And he was like, okay. And he showed up beautifully for it. And he was able to really hold me in this because, with the feminine also, I mean, it's like, just to sideswipe on that for a minute. It's like, I mean, we can laugh, cry, orgasm, scream, have like primal chanting from past lives come through. I mean, we can do all
Yeah.
of that at once. So it's like there can be this like explosion of emotion. And when men can learn to not take it personally and really just be fully present with it, it's like I had one of the most powerful transcendent orgasmic experiences of my entire life, where it was just like energy flooded my whole body and his, you know, I mean, it was like it was a really profound experience. But it started with us being able to move into and continue lovemaking even though I was crying, where, you know, there's a part of me that would be embarrassed and be like, let's stop, I'm gonna, like, you know, heal this like a perfectly normal,
Yeah.
self-regulated
Yeah.
human being, right? Or a part of him that might be like, you know,
Yeah.
that's kind of weird. Like, make love to you while you're crying? I don't know. You know, I mean, like, there's a lot of reasons why we could have not gone through with it, but it actually created a beautiful healing. And then after that, it was like just so much more depth of intimacy and closeness
Absolutely.
was
And
present.
yeah, and it started with you both made the choice to not take it personally, what was coming up for the other person. And I think that's such a
Yeah.
key part of transmutation
Yeah.
is like, okay, this is coming up for this person, and it's not about me necessarily. I may be the vehicle, like I may be like a conduit or a catalyst,
Yeah.
but like, what can I do with this person and what they're experiencing right now to help them work through whatever it is they're coming up? It takes almost a degree of
Yeah.
objectivity. And I think it's a really high degree of love and empathy for that other person, you know, in that experience. And I think once you
Absolutely.
get through a lot of that down and dirty, like foundational stuff, shit can get really fun, you know, because then it's like almost like you're liberated, right? So once you lay the foundation and you heal a
Yeah.
lot of that deep trauma and you work through it, then you can just start getting really weird in a really fun way. And I say weird as like a comical thing, but like you can
I
explore
love it.
things
Yeah.
that maybe neither of you even knew that you were into, right? I mean, like, that's where things get expansive, I think, sexually for people, you know, like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's,
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely.
And so that's I mean, I just find this whole concept to be so beautiful, because like when we stop just making sex about about ourselves and about predicating like just on getting off, just on a physical orgasm, like I just think there's no greater container
Yeah.
to understand ourselves and heal.
Yes. Yeah, there's so much beyond the what we have been conditioned to think that
Amen,
sex
sister.
is.
So I want to get, we're coming to the end of the half hour here, but I would love for you to share, you know, like a final thought on this that people can take with them if they want to explore sexual healing, they want to take this to another level, and then how people can, you know, follow you or connect more with you with what it is that you're up to in the world.
Yes, my final little soundbite is that our sex life is our greatest power source, and for some of us, nobody ever really taught us how to use it. So as adults, it's up to us to find or the erotic education that really allows us to tap into the full power of our sexuality, such that it becomes the engine of our entire
Mm,
life.
amen.
Um, so how you can find me, I mean, you know, follow me here on Facebook. And I go live and talk about this kind of stuff all the time. And I also have a website. I will put the link in the comments, but it's jamieelizabeththompson.com. And I have a quiz on there that talks about the erotic menu, the 4 different ways that we experience erotic desire, and how we can be fully met in our unique erotic style and essence. So that quiz helps you understand yourself a little bit better in that
I
area.
love it. And I'm so I get on there, guys. Check
Yeah.
that out. Everybody who's
Hmm.
watching. And I guess my final thought on this subject is I think it's really important to walk a line between understanding and appreciating sex as a sacred, you know, container for growth and expansion and everything. And then also not taking any part of it too seriously either. Like, be willing to be light and have fun with it and try something you're not sure about, and be willing to explore and have fun, for God's sake. Because I mean, I think when we get too mired in the depth of things is when we can get we can get dogmatic about sex and then get locked in a box, you know. And so be willing to free yourself from the box of your preconceived ideas of what's right and what's wrong in terms of your sex and your sexual connections with others, and treat it as a playground where you can climb the jungle gyms or go on the sandbox and do different things. And maybe you don't like those things, but you know, you don't know it until you try it. So I mean, and yeah, so that's sort of like what I'm adding on to what you're saying, because I mean, I've had the greatest healing of my life through my
Oh,
sexual relationships with some incredible humans, and I hope to continue to do that. So yeah, that's my hope.
So basically what we're saying here is that sex is supposed to be fun. That's it. That's all you need.
What a shocker. What a shocker. Right?
We got
That's
it.
a note to
Yeah.
end on, guys.
Great.
You know where to find me on my Facebook page where you're watching, and then at mattschafer.com, and I'll put a link down there as well. Jamie, thank you so much for joining me. It's just an honor, as always, to speak with you. I absolutely love you. Thank you.
So fun. Thank you so much, Matt. Had a great
All right,
time, and
thank
we'll
you.
see you
Bye,
next
guys.
time.
See you later. Have a great one.
Okay.